So I'll let you know the boy underneath all this. Yes, I am a boy. I'll let you know. So um, I moved to Santa Barbara 3.5, almost 4 years ago, but I didn't move very far. I was from Oxford, so it's only like a 45-minute drive up north. Um, let's see. Currently, I attend Antioch University, Santa Barbara, so just down the road. I'm going to get my master's in education, but currently I do work in Ventura as a kindergarten teacher. Surprise! So that classroom is very well educated.
Do your kids know that you do drag, or do the parents know that you do drag?
Some parents do, some parents don't. Because right now we're in that transition where, oh my God, I'm gonna say that for a question later, but the thoughts of certain parents and everything like that. But I learned not to hide it anymore as of recently. So I'll answer that question later.
So thank y'all all for those amazing introductions. Our panelists today, as you can tell, will give you amazing, wild, adventurous answers. So we are going to just go ahead and jump right into it. So the way this panel is going to work is we're going to have a set list of questions till around 6:15. At around 6:15, we're going to go ahead and start taking audience questions. If y'all have any questions as this is coming up, feel free to go ahead and type those in the chat. We really want this to be an organic conversation. And if you can't already tell, all of us know each other. And so there will definitely be some diversions. There will definitely be a lot of tangents. So we really want this to be a free-flowing and organic space. But let's go ahead and get started with the simple but not so simple question. How would you describe your drag persona? And what is your performance or drag style? And anyone may begin.
I'll go first, if folks don't mind. I would describe it's so funny, I wouldn't describe my drag persona as very different from when I'm not in drag. Like I tend to think that I behave similarly when I'm in drag versus when I'm out of drag, but other people think that I am a much more sassy and dramatic in drag, which is hard to imagine because I'm very sassy and dramatic out of drag. But I would describe my performance style as comedic. Generally, I try, I don't always do comedy routines or funny songs or whatever, but I try to always do something that kind of plays to my strengths. I think when you're first starting out in drag, you're trying to kind of figure out who you are and what you sort of connect with as a performer. And for me, it was sort of the more comedic aspects of drag.
Wonderful, thank you.
I'll go next. So I have been doing drag for barely a year. On the 7th was my first birthday. So I'm still figuring that out, but my background, I have been dancing Mexican folklore dance for 16, 17 years outside of drag. So I do like to incorporate culture into my performances, but not all the time. And I used to be a dancer in Santa Barbara, and so I'm constantly listening to different music. So I usually tend to do more of the poppy, well-known music, because that's what I love to drive around the car with my windows down, just hair flipping and stuff like that. So that's the style that I usually do. And I also I do sexy and pretty. So I'm that queen on that route over there. But I do love I have a lot of fake blood at my house, and I do like doing the pretty with bloody stuff. So I'm kind of, an angel and a demon.
Oh my God, that's where your name comes from.
Yeah, so that's the root of where it comes from, but it does have extra little legs there and there that I pull from.
Love that.
Well, my life seems to be, just a whirlwind, it is just a storm. Okay. I guess when I'm out of drag and when I'm in drag, I think I can I can explain it as just, I like my personality in drag like I like my makeup blended. So I really am animated and funny and all of those things and witty when I'm in drag, and I think I'm full of confidence more than I have, like, than I ever am. And when I'm out of drag, I still am funny and all this other stuff, but I'm not as big, so to speak, because I don't have to sometimes. And like when I'm around other drag queens who are big and dramatic, I tend to kind of bleed into the background because I don't have to be on. So I think that's how I would describe my performance style is I just want to pick songs that move me and like that really reach my audience, to be honest. Like I know that I'm a Black queen and I live in Santa Barbara, and some people don't get my stuff. They don't get my music. So when I do the Fantasias and the Aretha Franklin and you know, like SWV and all that stuff, I know that there's a very limited audience that I'm working with. But honey, I don't care because I'm gonna sell that song. I be feeling it. You know, and sometimes I literally be going to church on folks when I'm on stage, and y'all be thinking that I be playing shouting, but I'm actually shouting because I'm so deep into the song, and I pick things that really connect with me. So I think the storm part comes in. It's like I literally want to leave that place or that stage like a storm just took over it, you know, and just wrecked everything, and you don't know what to do. So that's kind of what my performance style is. And I think my drag is just really pulls from a lot of people. Beyonce is a huge inspiration for me. So, and it's not just because she's pretty, but it's her work ethic. It's her drive. It's her attention to detail. It's her commitment to herself, and it's her commitment to her art. And I really think drag is an art form, not just I'm getting on stage being a girl. You know, like that's not what I come from. I come from this place of I'm about to entertain the F out of these people, and I really want them to leave better than they came. You know, even if they didn't know it, you know? So like they come into this place thinking like, oh, it's just gonna be any other drag. Then they come out with this like religious experience, you know, this religious fantasy, and they're like, what happened to me? I really like that because I feel like that's how a lot of drag queens do the work in the community, is touch people within their performance. It's not in the street all the time marching. It's not all of those things that we really identify as activism. I think this particular art form is activism because it's really allowing people to be themselves, and it's really allowing people to see people in full form, you know, to feel beautiful, to be beautiful, and to spread that within the people that are at the show. So that's me.
Every time you go to a Vivian show, you come out baptized.
Just be aware of what kind of liquids are getting thrown at you. So as Vivian was talking about, like you were talking about how drag, like there's this perception of what activism is supposed to be or kind of look like. And within our particular political climate, there's like, it's really hard to separate ourselves from the politics of what's going on around us. And there's this saying that drag is inherently political. So for you all, where does drag and your activism or politics meet? And like, how do you incorporate that into your performance or into who you are as a drag queen?
I'll go ahead and start with that one. So like I said, I am a kindergarten teacher. So I feel with this battle we're in right now, everyone has a different part. You have like the people that are doing the work on the ground, people that are doing the work at home, people that are doing work all in different places. For me, mine is education of these little 5-year-old human beings. So, and as a gay man, I feel like it's my responsibility to teach that, because to give a voice where the voices weren't. So recently on Angel's Instagram in drag, I started reading children's storybooks of just people that have been oppressed. Like I do a lot of like Mexican American books. I do a lot of like Black history books. I do LGBTQ plus books. And I started it with educating kids in a classroom, but on the Instagram, I'm targeting more adults, surprisingly, because apparently there's a lot of adults that never have been read those books growing up. So they're lacking a lot of those skills. So I think that's remind me. So I feel like I'm doing my part in the classroom with the kids at a young age.
I'll go. I think to simply put it, down to the song choice, I would say, when things happen in the world, I like listen to a song or try to find something that I can feel like there's some healing in there, or there's something that I could bring some awareness to or some attention to. And so I would pick a song that kind of resonates with me with that. And me being a host, I think that just calling things out in a real way and not targeting people or not, like making people feel bad for being who they are, but saying this is happening and let's figure out, as a community, what we can do with that. So I just called it out, and I do it in a engaging, in a funny way sometimes. And sometimes it's just very serious. I calm the room and say what I need to say and have people kind of sit with that, and then not make people, but create a space where people can realize that while we are in the club and we're having a good time, joy can exist in the same space as frustration and madness and anger, right? And so I'm tired of people having to exit the room to deal with their stuff when you can bring all the things to the room and deal with it and place it in the space in that room how you want to place it, so that you don't have to keep uprooting yourself to do something else because you can't handle being in that room, right? So I want people to start to think about that. And a lot of the work that we do are in these clubs. This is sometimes for people the first time that they get some kind of education or I guess some information about the LGBT community. So I'm not Angela Davis, okay? I love her so much, but I'm not Angela Davis, okay? I'm Vivian Storm. And so I'm gonna do what I can do, and give you the resource, right? So you can look that up yourself, because it ain't my job all the time, but it can be my job if I chose to make that my job. So I definitely do it through song, and I do it through comedy, and I do it through just having real moments with people and talking to people on the sidelines as well.
I think the only thing I would add on to what both Vivian and Angel have already said is again, kind of like coming back to, I don't really see my behavior or like my persona as very different when I'm in drag or out of drag. I really try to like model my values regardless of whether I'm in drag or not. And my values are inclusivity and integrity and so many other things. But I always try to make sure that I'm making the choices that I would want to make that demonstrate those values, regardless of whether I'm in drag or not. So, whether that's calling a white queen out for wearing a dread wig, or, saying words that aren't theirs to say, or performing songs with words that aren't theirs. It's important for me that I'm having those kinds of conversations in all spaces that I inhabit, because drag is not independent of the politics of the world. It's very much rooted in the politics of the world. And so you have to be having those kinds of conversations, even in an art form that is like inherently like irreverent and like celebratory and fun. Like you have to be doing those things in all of those kinds of spaces as well.
Beautiful. Thank you all so much for sharing those answers. And you're talking about how for you, there isn't a large separation between your drag persona and like who you are on a normal basis. But I hear about a lot of queens who do have that separation, or who through drag have found out more about themselves. So how has being involved in drag affected your values, or have there been any qualities that you've gotten from your drag persona that you now bring into your everyday life?
That's real good. That's a good question. I think confidence in general, like I just say whatever I need to say. And I've been a little bit more, I guess, doing the self work, right? I think that some people get these drag personas because they feel like there's something missing in their lives, and they feel like they can play it out for a moment, in a space, right? And so in the 10 years that I've been doing this, I think that my confidence has grown so much that it no longer just sits with Vivian, right? It like really sits with everything that I do. I'm like trusting myself more. I'm creating other spaces for other people. I am looking at like it as a whole and not as a separate entity of myself, right? I spent a long time in my career trying to separate Vivian and DJ, like just a lot of that, just separating. I'm just like, but why do I have to live in these two separate boxes when this can happen, and then I can ebb and flow how I wanted to and make my own rules, right? And I just feel like it was such an energy that was fighting for me to be these two separate people when I love being Vivian and I love being myself, like that organic, no makeup type of person. But what I noticed that I lacked in DJ was confidence. And when I lacked in DJ is this ability to see that I was beautiful without the filter of makeup, right? And so being able to accept that and embody that, I think I'm a way better person because of it. And whether I put on lashes or not, like, I don't have to become Vivian to be confident. I'm just confident in general, right? And she brings out a little extra in me because I feel the fantasy that I create for myself.
I love that. I love that.
I think for me, it was like what it sort of helped me to see was how much the outside world tries to limit our identities. And when you're engaged in an art form that is literally the creation and expression of identity, it allows you to incorporate that into your daily life and think about, like, who says that I can't do this or, wear that or express myself in this way? And so I think in a lot of ways, it's a very like liberatory art form because it lets you see how much of the expectations we have of ourselves and of other people are utter bullshit, and really lets you kind of express yourself freely.
So my drag persona, when I first started, I would try and keep those two people separate. This is Angel, this is Carlos. They don't know each other. They are two different people. But as I continued with it, what I've learned was Carlos, as a gay boy, growing up in a Mexican household, he wasn't able to be gay. I was a late bloomer, and I came out at 21. And
yeah, I was 25.
And so now I would try to go to the store, but be as masculine as possible just to try to blend in. So I really wasn't enjoying it because I was always focused on trying to look a certain way. So now that Angel was born, she gave Carlos, as a gay man, more confidence. So now, like, I go out as a boy with little painted sparkly nails, and I'm learning not to care anymore because, as I learned from my friend right here, well, on my screen, she's right here, Miss Vivian Storm, I'm learning now, because of Angel, to live my true authentic self as Carlos with all the confidence being a gay man, because it's not a bad thing. And that's what I thought it was. So now that Angel was born, I'm like, I feel like I'm living my true authentic self now, as of recently.
Can I just say something else too? I just think that like being a part of like the drag community, there is a lot of stuff that you have that I think that come up for you. I feel like drag is such a thing in our community, especially when you're like coming out. because people, the fear is, or when you say something about it, like, okay, I'm gay. So that was one hurdle that you had to get over with your parents and everybody else. And then on top of that, then you find drag, and they're like, oh, I'm a drag queen. Like, oh, so you want to be a girl now? And it's like all this stuff that we have to unlearn about ourselves. Like, being a drag queen doesn't make you more gay. And it doesn't make sense to me. You know, like now it don't make sense to me. But before, when I was starting to do it, I mean, it took me into grad school in order for me to become a drag queen, when, honey, it was all in my blood and in my soul. I mean, hairbrush after hairbrush, I was in the mirror, honey. And my sister did hair at the time, so all her tracks and stuff would be all over the house. And baby, I made a sickening bang, honey, in front of that mirror in the bathroom and locked the door. And I was singing my Tony Braxton, honey. I was in the mirror doing it, performing in front of my invisible audience. And I thought that I could never do drag in undergrad because that would be confirmation that I was a gay, you know? And so I was like, it was so bizarre. But when I found it, I was like, I can't even see my life without it, right? But I had to unlearn that being a drag queen doesn't solidify your gayness. It really amplifies your confidence, right? And that's a difference, right? And so I think that we had to unlearn all the things that we've known about being gay in our communities or whatever communities that you come from, because in some spaces it's harder, I think, to live in that space where you are really embodying who you are, and the others around you that would not allow you to physically harm you for not doing so, you know, for doing so. So I think there was a lot of unlearning. It's a series of unlearning, and something that has to continue as you continue on being your fabulous self. It's like unlearning this notion that this solidifies or makes you more gay, you know, and stop, I guess, like putting that particular stipulation on your freedom. So drag is amazing. If you want to try it, freaking go ahead. If you don't like it, you will get something out of it, and I promise you, it's gonna be good.
So these are all excellent answers, and they're all excellent transitions into a couple areas. So we do have an audience question that I'm going to wrap in after this next question. But Vivian, I think you ended on a really good note of talking about getting into drag. So how did you all become involved in drag? Do you feel it's the same today, and why are you still doing drag?
I'm happy to go first. I got into drag 7 years ago or something like that. And part of it was RuPaul's Drag Race. My partner and I were watching it, and were just like kind of blown away at the artistry of it. And my whole life have been like an artist, and have like been doing drawing and painting for my whole life. And when we were watching drag, my Drag Race, my partner just like ordered a bunch of makeup for fun. And when it arrived, I was just like, all right, I'll like see what I can do with this. And it was one of those moments where it was like, oh, this is like the medium that like clicked for me. Cause I like enjoyed all the other forms of art that I had done in my life, but it like never felt like it was the right way to express my artistry. And so when that arrived, it was like, oh, I get it. Like, this is it. And I felt like a really natural connection to drag as a form of art, particularly like makeup as a form of art. And so for me, when I like first started, I wanted to just like create looks and never really envisioned myself as a performer. And then like just decided to go out to the club in drag one night, and a queen was like, oh, okay, so you're like running for Queen of Pride, right? Like you're here, that's what you're going to do. And so I just did, and then drag is like this monster that just takes over your life, and you can't escape it. It's like a black hole that just like pulls you in and never lets go. And so it just kind of like evolved from there.
Takes over your closet too, I'm just saying. I can go next. So like I was saying, growing up, I was in a dance group, So we would do like show here, bus, and and so when and I was the director of it, so it was really, really, really stressful because not only was I worried about myself, I was worried about like 30 other people in my dance group and how they're going to perform. So the amount of stress that was on my shoulders, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't take it. I can't take it. So when I went to grad school, I had to let that go because of the time. And I was like, you know what? Let me try something out for me. Because the past 16 years of my life was doing things for other people. So I was like, you know what? Let me try this. Let me try to make Carlos happy. And then that person all over there, Echo, oh my gosh, this face is because of Echo. And I'm like, thank you so much. But I started playing around with my face and I was like, wow, I really, really love this. And the performance was making Carlos happy or making Angel happy. And I felt like that's what I was missing. And it does consume you. Like, my boyfriend is now the camera person at every single one of the shows. Like, he's jumped into that world because it's a fun, exciting world. And I don't know why I took so long to get here. So.
Ditto with the boyfriend thing. Derek does the same thing. Oh my God, he's so amazing. But I would say my students did. I went to grad school and they were like, because I was a hall director for a building, and they were like, oh, you can do that. Like, I want to see you do Beyonce. I want to see you do Rihanna. And I was like, I ain't gonna do it. I can't do that. And then next thing you know, I was on the stage and I did it, honey. I had 4 dancers. I was like, come on, rude boy, you should big enough. Come on, rude boy, you should big enough. Take it. I was doing it and everybody was going crazy. And I was like, oh my God, I think I found my calling. Why am I getting this degree? I could just be a drag queen. I got the degree because I needed a plan B and C. So I did that. But I always wanted to be a singer and a songwriter. And I've written a lot of songs, got a lot of books and stuff. And I always wanted to be a performer, but didn't think I was cute enough or skinny enough or white enough or any of those things. And I say that back then because I was having an issue. And right now I'm loving being Black. I'm a performer. I'm a singer. I'm all of the things. But I thought I would be known for my voice. I'm literally known as somebody who doesn't use it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think it's so funny to me how life plays these little tricks on you. Like, oh yeah, I'm gonna make you a star, but not for what you thought you was gonna be, right? Hey, could you lip sync this song? That's how you're gonna become famous. I'm like, dang it. So I incorporated here and there, but I just think it's funny that they felt that they had a lot of confidence in me, my students, than I did myself, you know, and getting on that stage. I think the first time I've ever done drag, I did 4 numbers, y'all. 4 numbers. And that was freaking amazing. And I got bit by the bug, and every year I did that show, and I still do that show. I go back to Wisconsin, where I'm from, to do that show for the past 10 years. And it's just been, that's like my alma mater. And I give back in that way because I ain't getting none of my money yet until I get famous. They can get my time. They can fly me out and get my time. But until I can get some coin, they can get my time and my presence. So yeah, it was because of my students.
I love that. And one of my favorite things is that, like, me and Vivian both started with doing Rude Boy as, like, our first performance numbers. Like, my first time was at the spring show that happens every year, but just the amount of coincidences that happened with me and Vivian is just too much. It's just way too much. So with, like, us all getting into drag and becoming, like, these really central figures within the community, drag queens are usually seen as some of the most recognizable folks of the queer and trans community, especially now with RuPaul's Drag Race, Dragula, all of these different platforms where they're really being highlighted and showcased in terms of makeup and fashion and whatever the next trend is. So what role do you think drag plays for the LGBTQ community as a whole? And how would you describe the drag community itself? That can either be locally or nationally or wherever. But where do you see us fitting in the entire LGBTQ community, and how do you see the drag community?
I can go. So as a newly 21-year-old gay boy, I went to West Hollywood like everyone else, and I would see these performers on stage. They had the utmost confidence ever. Like I would ask my friends, "Oh my gosh, is like she actually singing? She sounds just like the artist." But apparently they do the live version of the artist. But I was like so amazed by these people, and I'm like, wow. And then now getting into it, I feel like these queens that are on stage are giving a voice because some people are too scared to say something. And with a lot of these numbers and performances, they're like vocalizing the issues. And as for community, I feel my other colleagues over there would answer that question better than I would. But I was born in the most welcoming, the most friendly, the most like sisterhood of the traveling wigs family that I am so lucky to have that, because I have visited other places that shall remain nameless that it wasn't like that. And I gotta say, Vivian Storm right here has really like put it in Santa Barbara. We are kind, we are friendly, we're not catty. And it just happens to be like all our personalities. So I thank you for that, Vivian, and everyone else that contributed to it, because I just I can't imagine being born and raised as a drag queen anywhere else besides Santa Barbara.
If I can just add onto that, I think I'm forgetting the exact question you phrased, Dwayne, but thinking about the drag community in Santa Barbara, it wasn't always that way. And I think part of the tricky thing with like the rise of RuPaul's Drag Race as this like super popular thing is that we see a lot of manufactured drama connected to drag on TV, and then people often like model that in their own communities and think that they have to have the comebacks and have the reads and always be, you know, cutting folks down so that they're the best one and getting the most attention. And I think that that is so harmful to the queer community, because we have enough people cutting us down outside the queer community that we do not need to be doing that work ourselves. And so one of the things that I love most about our community is I don't think there's anybody in it right now who isn't actively invested in lifting each other up and supporting each other and like willing to, you know, pass on the sisterhood of the traveling wig and help that new queen out who wants to do better. And I think that's such a huge, like, beautiful thing that, like Angel said, doesn't exist in every community. So I'm really grateful for that. Yeah, and I'll stop there.
Thinking about it, I have worn a wig from Addie Mokes and Echo and Vivian.
Same, okay. I would say too, like I remember having a conversation with you, Echo, and we like really did some of the groundwork and the framework for this for like this new community that we wanted to have. Because when I first got here, it wasn't like that. It was definitely this person is Queen Bee, and that is it. You have to pray to all of the gods in order for you to be liked and to get into anything, right? And if it wasn't a competition that was like an amateur competition, I wouldn't have got here. I did some kind of Halloween something when I got here, and that's when I kind of got introduced to the Santa Barbara scene. And I think at that time you just have to pick sides. Either you are on this person's side or this person's side. And where I come from, I did too much observing that, because I was never in that mess, but I did too much observing that. I was like, I will not play that game ever. And I got here and I was like, I'm gonna be this person's friend, I'm gonna be this person's friend. And if y'all have a beef with it, y'all need to grill that shit up and eat it, because I ain't. And if you don't like meat, then you better go find you a veggie burger, because I am not the person who's going to be giving you all of that stuff and kind of bringing things back. If you tell me something, my lips are going to be sealed. I'm not going back and telling somebody else what you said. And I just find that very powerful, because I think making that choice and making that stance is how like Echo and I became like really good friends and start to cultivate a loving and inclusive community for drag. And then after that, just kind of birthing these spaces, not people, or not making people feel anything. So I'm not interested in controlling people's feelings and thoughts or whatnot. We literally tried to create spaces for people to come. And if you was a new drag queen, we say, when do you want to perform? Not, let me see something about what you've done. Let me see your clothes. Let me see how your wig is. Let me see your makeup. Honey, you can be busted and disgusted. Get on the stage, do your thing, have people look at you and experience you so that you can see if you want to do this. And if you can and you want to, by all means, our village will help you. We will cultivate whatever you want, right? But it became this village kind of aspect. And that's Santa Barbara. So I love our community. Outside of the community, I think Echo was right. When we get these images, we start to portray them. And we are not as skilled as I would like us to be to differentiate what is not real and what is real, and what is entertainment and what is not. I mean, these girls on RuPaul Drag Race, every time I get them in front of me and I'm interviewing them, I ask them the question, are you like the show? They say, absolutely not. You have to get ratings. And if you don't, you get kicked off. And I wanted to stay on. So I gotta be shady. I gotta be catty. I gotta be all these things so I can stay on, win, and change my community. Right? I mean, I look at all these people who made that choice, and I've done some pretty cool things because of it. But sometimes you have to play the game in order for you to get there. It's unfortunate, but sometimes we have to do so. And I'm happy to say that I haven't had to play that game in that way. And I've created spaces, or helped create spaces for people to just be, and not having to pretend to be something that they're not. So I want to say our community is not all Sisterhood of the Traveling Wigs, but if you're committed to that, then it can be, right? And you go into these different spaces. My thing is, when I tell any girl who gets a booking in LA from Santa Barbara, remain who you are. If people are catty and don't speak to you and don't want to like pay you any mind, honey, you don't let them control who you are. Okay? So you still be nice. You still, take care of yourself. You still hold your values in that space. Do not switch to become them because you want to fit in. You will find your place. And it's as simple as that.
I love all y'all, just because I love y'all. Like, again, I'm also like a product of like this drag community here. Like, I consider both like Vivian and Echo like mentors. Angel's my sister. Like, that is just the community which we have here. And I think the reason why we're producing such amazing drag queens, like folks from LA and folks from up north and folks from Vegas still know queens from Santa Barbara. Like, they still know who we are because we allow folks that space to grow and become their best versions of themselves. And that what creates very unique drag. Because my experience, I go to a city like Las Vegas, or when I was in DC, they're like, you have to have your tights like this, your wig must look like this, your makeup must look like this. But here, allowing folks that freedom to experiment is what creates that interesting art. Like, if you are putting input on what I am doing, it is no longer my art. It is your art. It is no longer my product. And we really fostered that. And so I think another beautiful thing about us really living and owning our art and creating that sense of community is that we want to foster that in other spaces as well. And so, like, Angel, you've been creating so much amazing content, and you talked about it a little bit earlier, but can you share more about your experience with the parents at your school, if you feel comfortable doing so? And about why you're selective with sharing your art with some and sharing your art with others.
Yeah, so my school, like the actual school, they're so supportive. Like, my principal, my other colleagues from like 4 of the classrooms, they've all been to a show and they're there cheering me on, and it just makes me feel so much more comfortable at work knowing that I have these people that I see every single day and I look up to. They're supporting me. And there's parents that also support me. And okay, so I got a message on Instagram the other day from a parent at my school. The moment I saw that notification, my heart just sank. I'm like, oh my God, what's going to happen? And they literally said, thank you. Because these little story times, she told me that I am making a conversation that could be very difficult to have with a child easy because they know me, they love me, and they look up to me. So that connection right there, like, solidified why I'm doing this. And that just made my day. And her son can't, like, he can't wait till the next story time with Miss Angel comes on. And I have other, like, my partner's coworkers, friends, they're showing those videos to their kids too. And I'm like, I didn't know that this was gonna impact people in that way. But some parents that I know their kids very well, and the kids are sometimes representations of the family that they come from. And I see them more than I see the parents. Like, I also did the after school program. So I was with the same kids from 7:45 in the morning to about 5:50, like Monday through Friday. So I knew them very well. And the parents that kind of gave me the cold shoulder, you know, when you can just feel it, those were the people I was like, these are the people that I don't need in my life, because they're only gonna poke that poison in my body, and I don't need that. So, but I'm not gonna I'm not gonna deny it if they ask me, but I am very selective on the people that see it, or the people that don't see it, I should say.
Wonderful, thank you. And that's beautiful, and that's your right to do, to share your art with those folks who deserve it. You're letting folks in on your experience. They're getting a taste of how amazing you are. And so, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, I'll let everyone see it until you give me a reason for you not to see it. You know? So that's how I do it.
I love that. So we were, I realized that this was the part of the question that we had lost because we were just talking about how much we love each other. But how does drag fit into the LGBTQ community as a whole? And so, like, what role do drag queens play in, like, the discourse that happens around the queer and trans community, how the community is perceived, and how we're perceived within the community? Echo, you had mentioned a little bit earlier about how your persona is very much the same, yet when you're in drag, folks always see you as sassier or more dramatic when you're acting exactly the same way, especially as someone who knows you, you're acting the same way. And so how do y'all think drag queens play this role, and what is our perception of folks, from folks within our own community?
I think, so it's so funny, this has also been an opportunity for self-reflection, just like talking this meeting. And so it's funny, like, one of the things I love about drag is that I talked a little bit about how it frees you to express yourself in different ways. And so I imagine probably why people see me as like sassy or more dramatic is because I'm less, like, I'm censoring myself less. I'm worried less about what people are thinking about me. And so I'm just kind of like being. But coming to like what drag is to the queer community, I think it sends a message of like queerness is something to be celebrated. And I think that it also sends a message that all of the restrictions that we put on ourselves are in our heads. And all of that is also to say, like, society enforces those, but we don't have to choose, we can choose not to enforce them on ourselves. And so I think that, like, that's some of the beauty that I see about drag, is that a lot of folks look at it as a way to just celebrate all the aspects of identity that are in, like, the complexness that is ourselves. So I think of it as like possibility modeling in a way, like celebrating yourself, celebrating queerness, celebrating gender, celebrating sexuality in whatever that looks like for you.
Ooh,
Vivian,
if I was over your house, I would have pushed you on the floor.
Vivian was losing her mind while you were speaking. So Vivian, do you want to speak a little bit about why you would push Ann on the floor?
Yes, I will push you all the way on the floor, as the kids would say. You know, when the kids be like, "Oh, she got a whole man." That is so funny to me. I was like, as opposed to what? I have one. But I think it's so funny. Anyway, I digress. I was just saying, like, it was just so good. It was so put together. Thank you so much. The people needed to hear it, honey. But one of the things that I would say is that it brings people together. But I think the expectation sometimes is like, see, for a long time, I feared drag queens because they had they were putting into practice freedom, right? And at the time, I didn't know freedom like that. Like, I was getting to know who I was, but they just embody and practice freedom when they're able to be in drag. And so that freedom may look like picking on somebody and like, pulling them from the crowd to break up the tension and the thought process that they've been having about themselves and other people. And people get really scared at freedom. They really get really scared at that because they don't know what that looks like. And they're so consumed of what they think will happen as a result to living their lives fully, right? So they become afraid of it. And so I was very, very afraid of drag queens when I would go to shows, and I would sit all the way in the back, or I would sit kind of in the middle of the show so those girls can go to the middle of people and have to, with all their pattern, their big old hips and butts and stuff. They didn't want to get people out the way. It would have been too much for them. But there were some of those drag queens who were like, oh, you thought you was sitting in the middle, girl. Everybody move out the way. And people would be like, okay, because I don't want them to be me, right? And then they get you. Ooh, I was afraid, but it was just that freedom part. And I think people expect that from drag queens, and they come to these shows to be some of them come to be read because they love it. They just love all of that, talk about me, girl, please pour it all over me. And there's some of us who are like, no, I just came for the entertainment, and I'll sit in the back and please do not pick on me because I don't want to be seen, right? And I just think that like people have that expectation of us sometimes to point out and exaggerate and be big and talk about and make people feel uncomfortable and challenge their comfort. And I'm the opposite of that. I see you being uncomfortable. I want to do something to make sure that you are comfortable. So when you come back again, I can introduce you to somebody being kind to you and giving you grace in that moment, but still keeping you entertained so you can come back. And I know people who have went to drag shows and say, I will never go back again because I was horrified. Okay. And I feel like I have a stake in there as a show host or somebody who's on that stage doing my thing. I have a responsibility, so to speak. I don't have a lot of responsibilities, but I take that upon myself to say, I'm going to be kind. Okay. I'm going to show you a different side of drag, and you're going to love it, and you're going to come back again. I can't guarantee what the other girl's going to do. If there's another host or you go somewhere else, they may call you up. That's fine. But at least you have one experience that was not that. So you have something to compare to. Because if you go and that's all you get, then basically you ain't coming back for several years because you got some trauma around a drag queen trying to show you freedom, but you weren't ready for that. And it makes you more scared of it, So I don't want to do that and entertain that for folks. So I just take that upon myself not to do that. But we bring people together, and I think people look up to drag queens because of that. We bring communities together through entertainment, and so to speak, we kind of are like the Power Rangers of this world. We put on our suits, we do our thing, we fight injustice, we fight all the other stuff, and then we look good while we do it. It's morphin' time.
Oh my gosh, that should be a plug for Morph products. It's morphin' time. Okay, trademark, TM. Anyway, Angel, what about you?
I think I answered that question with when I was a young gay boy going to these clubs, seeing these drag queens. And I was like, are they singing live? But I do feel like they're giving a voice to a voice that is sometimes not there.
Well, that is absolutely gorgeous. So transitioning into a different aspect is like drag itself is an incredible reference. And we talk about how we're talking about how a lot of folks see these drag queens. And we see so many drag queens like now being on the cover of like Vogue and fashion magazines. And we see them being these like incredible models or these folks who are leading these protests that we see going on right now. So what do y'all think are some kind of essential drag references? These can be people, these can be things that are incorporated in drag, but what do you all think are some essential things that are central to what drag is? People, things.
Your local queens, no matter what city you're in, are like the reference for drag, I think. Like, I'm so tired of people judging local queens based on RuPaul's Drag Race when we're not being handed $100,000 checks or touring the world. Like, no. And also, drag didn't start with RuPaul's Drag Race, right? Like, it's existed for a very, very long time. And so I think knowing the history of drag and knowing all of the amazing people who got us where we are is such a better reference than Drag Race.
I just want to let you know that I just texted your partner to push you on the floor for me again. I feel that 100%, 100%. And I think that there's little things, you know, like I think a lot of our lingo and language that we use at shows could be endearing, and people have started to use those things as well to bring joy and encouragement to other folks. And I think that I'm not necessarily thinking that we created it all, but there are certain things that come out of our community that people are just adapting and loving, you know, and they're like, oh my God, I heard this drag queen say it, and it was just so amazing. So they just adapted it in their lives. And I think that's beautiful to have such influence on language and even makeup as well. Like, I mean, I was looking at, because I was with Angel the other day, and we were talking about Janet Jackson back in the 80s and how they literally chiseled that girl's face as she was a Greek goddess statue, okay? That contour was thick and heavy, honey. Heavy. That nose contour was like, bloop, honey. I mean, and I was wondering why she sings like this. It was because that contour was so heavy on that nose, honey. So, and I think that, like, gay culture just really has influenced like the beauty industry and all those things too. It's just like, it's everywhere. And we think that it's not mainstream yet, but I think that a lot of the components of drag have met mainstream and really has taken off in mainstream as well. Like, we are literally illusionists, you know, we are creating things that are completely not there on our faces, right? And so, and people are doing the same thing in just regular culture, you know, that they're making things happen that are not there. And I think it took, you know, the art of drag for people to see that you can create what you want. And I think that was our focus, right? We wanted to look as real as we thought real can be, whatever that looked like and played out in people's lives.
Oh, and to answer your question about references, so I know I'm probably going to be knocked in the hand for this one, but it wasn't until recently, when I say recently, I mean like a year ago, that my boyfriend, which is not a drag queen, introduced me to Paris is Burning. And I didn't know about all this. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm such a bad drag queen since I didn't know about this. But like looking at the struggle and why people did what they did and how it was so on the hush and underground, I think that's a good reference to look at. And also like the more modern day one, like Pose, and what we were talking about, Maddie or Dwayne, Legendary. So, and like they make references in there saying that a lot of these fashions do come from that scene as well. So
yeah, so much of it like really does. I mean, and especially like there, you know, in the words of Jasmine Masters, RuPaul Drag Race done fucked up drag. And and Vivian, you talked about how like lingo and all of those kinds of things, folks are really taking and pulling from drag shows. But I think a lot of folks are attributing that to Drag Race, and they're really forgetting about the ballroom community and how a lot of the queens who are popularizing it now, and sorry to say it's white queens who are popularizing trends that originally started with queer and trans, Black and Latinx folks within those particular kinds of scenes. And so with a kind of very, very harsh transition with two things, RuPaul Drag Race done fucked up drag, but so has quarantine. And so how is drag still influencing people within quarantine, and how has drag changed for you since we've gone into quarantine? Angel,
I'll
this is
answer
your
that
question
real quick. I feel like, yeah, it sucks that we're not out with people anymore. But personally, I am trying to make the best of it, and I am really, really enjoying it because I feel I can get my creative ideas and creative expressions with all the elements that I could control. I can't control a sucky vibe at a club because I remember that performance. Oh my gosh, the vibe was so down. That was like the worst performance I've ever did in my life, and you have to act like it was the best thing ever, which was very difficult for me. But I love shooting in home. Like I feel like I can get my personality out there even through a camera, and honestly it's helping us get to an age where we're going to use technology a lot. So I personally am enjoying it currently.
I know I was just talking about how not to look at RuPaul's Drag Race as the reference, but I am going to make a RuPaul's Drag Race reference right now, which is, I think it's like interesting, like the most recent season, instead of like the lip sync for the crown thing that they've always did, the finalists made essentially like a music video creative project. And I think that's so cool because the platforms that drag has had historically haven't necessarily always like facilitated different expressions of drag. And so I kind of love what the pandemic has forced drag to come up with in and like pushed it into different creative ways. And so there's so many like cool online drag shows where people from like around the world are like tipping people. There's, you know, videos like what Angel is doing reading children's books. So I think that there's still a lot of drag out there. Like I don't know, my newsfeed is very often like full of drag, and so I still see a lot of drag today, but I think it's kind of causing people to like express their art form in different ways than it has in the past.
And I would say for a profession like this, an art form like this, like how we constantly are defying and pushing ourselves out of these boxes. And I think just as people, we have just been conditioned to live in this box too, right? So like, as much as I'm trying to get out and I'm doing drag and I feel like, you know, I'm like defining all the odds and all of these social norms and all this stuff, there's still a box that I was playing in. And the box that I was playing is that I can only do drag on a stage. COVID came in and punched us all in the face and was like, listen, bitch, you're going to be creative if I don't know what, okay? After this whole season of this thing happening, you're going to be the most creative bitch I've ever made in your whole entire life. And it's great. I think there's something great to say that I've been pushed and like pushed all the way on the floor, as I'm going to do Echo when I see her, like pushed all the way on the floor, you know, out of my seat, out of my comfort, to think about drag in such a different way. Okay, I'm going to create videos, as Angel said. I'm going to have all of the online things, but most of all, I'm going to play around with my looks. I'm going to rebrand. I'm going to rethink what it means to be a drag queen, and most importantly, what it is to be me as a drag queen. Not having RuPaul Drag Race dictate what that is for me, or any other show that we reference. None of that would dictate what I am and who I am and what I want to be. I think that's amazing. The disease didn't do that to us. Let me make that very clear, right? I think having time to ourselves to rethink and to be push outside the box and to not be comfortable in that box anymore has led us to this particular age that we can communicate and do a whole bunch of things that they said we couldn't do, right? That the society said that we couldn't do, and what we said we couldn't do. Oh, I can't possibly do drag. I can't get gigs. I can't do this. I'm not a real drag queen because I haven't performed yet. I haven't been on the stage. Oh, honey, there's so many ways now that you don't need to be on the stage to do that. Create your own. And everybody got a stage in their house right now, right? And so it's just beautiful to know that people can now log into your social media and see you on your stage doing what you love to do. You don't have to wait for me to book you or somebody else to do this. You can do that yourself. That's freedom, right? That is freedom that we could not imagine before this happened. And I think it's beautiful. And I hope it continues.
Like going off of what Vivian said, you don't have to wait for a gig. You can make your gig. Like my gig is in my living room whenever I want to do it. But I think also if this whole COVID situation didn't happen, I'm looking on the bright side here, but I don't think I would have done these story times, which I don't think these parents would be having these conversations with these children. So I think that also too is a very important piece of it.
I love that. So we are reaching the end of our designated Q&A session. So we're going to start taking some audience questions. So my final question for the panelists before we take the audience questions is, do you have a final message that you would like to leave folks with about drag, the current state of the nation, the queer community, or anything of your choosing?
I'll keep it short and simple. Be open to constructive criticism and ask for help when you need it, because asking for help doesn't mean that you're any less of a drag queen. So I'll just leave it at that.
Just say be fierce, you know, and really start to think about what you want out of your life and figure out ways to participate in making your dreams your reality, you know. And I feel like you don't have to put on a full face of makeup in order for you to be confident. But if that's what you want to do, you have choices and you have options. And I think that's the most beautiful thing that you can have in this life is choices and options. And I also the power to make those. Okay, you can have a whole bunch of them and then you don't see that you don't have the power to make them. But all of that is a factor in all of this. And, you know, as an amazing person said to me, you know, if you don't like what something is, you know, or where it is or what it is, then you put yourself in a position to make sure that you can change that. So my announcement to you today is I'm running for president. Storm 2020, reigning justice down for all. Vote for Vivian Storm. I am a part of the Fierce Party. Okay, wait a minute. I know you're probably thinking, what the hell does fierce mean? Let me tell you. Please hold while I transfer your call. FIERCE is an acronym for freedom, independence, education, radical justice, community, and equality. Vote for Storm 2020. I'm a part of the Fierce Party, not the Republican Party, not the Democratic Party, and certainly not the birthday party. I am the Fierce Party.
I hated that, but well, we have a follow-up question from an audience member. Where do we register to vote for this party? I regret asking.
You can go on my social medias all around. I'm gonna make the announcement today. So just be patient. I have bumper stickers and stickers that you can put on your water bottles and stuff. Okay, all around the college and stuff, because I believe in education.
I have nothing to say after that.
Ooh, love your hair, hate your guts. So now we're gonna take some audience questions. So first, as drag artists visible in institutions of education and the traditional visibility for drag artists in entertainment, what other space do you most wish more drag artists were visible?
It's so funny that I was Vivian, that you just announced running for president, because actually I think it would be really cool to have more folks who have done drag at some point to be in politics. Like, I know there was a queen who ran for city council in LA. I can't remember if she won or not.
Maybe a girl is still a council person in LA.
Okay, so she did win.
She won, and she's still a council person. And Marty Cummings, I believe, in New York is running now too.
Okay. I think that would be really amazing, because I think that drag artists are so often like deeply connected to their community and can really bring a lot of community knowledge to politics. So I would love to see more drag queens running for office. Vivian Storm 2020.
I would like to see more good, emphasis on good drag music entering the mainstream. I think that would be really cool, because so many times now drag artists are used as a prop within music videos to try to win over communities without artists actually doing anything to contribute to those communities or stand up for them, like in times of crisis. And so there's so many drag artists who are actually beautiful singers. Like Jujubee is an amazing singer. There's some folks who create really amazing beats. Alaska was able to get to the top of the comedy charts on iTunes, but that's what ends up happening is a lot of the drag music, even though it might be pop or electronic or something else, is automatically put into these comedy or entertainment categories that they don't belong in. And so I think it'd be really cool to highlight some more drag artists. Like Pablo Vittar is finally someone who is able to do that. And so I think that would be really, really awesome to have more folks within those spaces.
No, I agree with that, because I know that, like, Echo and I joke around all the time. So if when I win RuPaul's Drag Race 2045, I want to do an album. But she says every time she wins, next year or 2 years from now when she wins, like how she's gonna make an album, but it's gonna be a really good album. But I'm gonna be on the track with her. And I was like, okay, well, I hope it's a good album, because I feel like everybody always makes some like just like talking type of songs, and it's like go girl, go 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 girl, go 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 go. I'm like, I need to be on the charts, Billboard 100. I want to be on that chart, and I want to sing about something real good, and they can be like, this drag queen is slaying the game, and not just because of her outfits or whatever, but because her voice is actually cool. She's winning a Grammy. She's winning a Tony. She's winning all of those things. She's in a new James Bond song. Now, an Oscar is in her future when she does that stuff, So for me, I really would love to see that. So thank you for bringing that point to the center, because I really love the thought of having somebody be really good at what they do and to like really get the praise and the attention that they need for their art form, and not just this what they think gay culture is. Like every time I go to the club, they think that techno is gay music. And I'm like, girl, I don't listen to this a day in my life until I walk into this place. Where is SWV? I don't understand.
Sorry, I had to take off this glove because I wasn't able to touch my computer. But I would say I would want to see more drag artists in mainstream television that's not targeted to the LGBTQ plus community, and not only during the month of June.
100%. I'm so tired of the pandering. So we have another question, and we already touched on it a little bit, but what has drag done for you all in helping you understand your relationship with gender and gender expression? For me, like, to put it simply, is like just reaffirming the fact that like gender is a construct. Like, it's all up to us about how we want to define it and how we want to take that on to ourselves, and that it's so easily malleable. I mean, the amount of straight men, and I started drag in IV, so there were quite a few that I was around that I came out in drag, and they're like, "Who is she?" And then I'm like, "Hey, what's up, bro?" And it throws them off. But they're like, I'm still so attracted to you. And I'm like, see how malleable attraction, right, in all of its forms is so malleable. All of it is just very much on these multiple planes and axes that it's really up to the individual about how they want to define themselves. And I think it's also important to say that, yes, like, fuck the gender binary, but the binary is really important to folks as well. Some folks really, really need that in terms of forming their identity. So really focusing on how the individual defines themselves within their gender and their gender expression.
I know Vivian's gonna jump on this one real quick because we had conversations like this before. But yeah, you do see that in the nightlife, like, men come up to you like, hey, and like, it's so funny to, like, you said attraction's attraction, but I know Vivian's gonna comment more on that one because I love how she can explain it, not to like put the spotlight on you right now. Vivian Storm 2020.
No, just kidding. No, yes, all of the things, all of what both of y'all just said. I think for me, it first let me unlearn what it is to be what I thought what it was to be female. Because I think that sometimes when you get into drag, you want to exaggerate and like become this persona, and then you think that women act a certain way. And I really had to do some significant work on how like gender expression has played out in my life, and drawing from all types of different like expressions, you know, around, especially, you know, when I in context of being a woman and all this. I have 4 sisters and a mom, and I have a whole bunch of aunties that I grew up with. And so I was taking on like, well, in order for you to be female or be a girl or a woman or whatever, you have to be this and dainty and this and this. And I'm like, bitch, ain't nobody like that around you. Ain't nobody like that. You know, so why are you taking that on? You know, why is that the expression that you're taking on? So for me, I had to unlearn all of those things and just take in and be and create all the things that I wanted. When it comes down to men, oh my God, I think it's funny when people say you attractive, and I didn't know you were a man behind all of those things, all of that. And I'm sorry for like being attracted to you. I was like, you were attracted to what you look, like what you looked at, what you thought I was. It has nothing to do with what I actually am and how you kind of think about, you know, like, oh, am I gay and all. I don't know why you having a counseling session with yourself at the club. Well, all I need you to know is that I'm beautiful and you said it, and that's it. That's fine. It's great. I'm cute. You acknowledged it. Let's keep it pumping. For you to think that you are now something that you are not, and you questioning and you having this whole moment with yourself, honey, I wasn't even participating. I just said thank you, and I just went on about my business. But you took it onto yourself to like now think about, you know, how you express yourself and what you think you are. And, you know, like, just because you thought I was something that I wasn't. And I like, you know, I'm very honest and truthful in those moments, because I know in those spaces that I need to protect myself. I know that people are dying all over the world because people can't deal with their shit. And people are very afraid of, again, embodying who they are. You know, and seeing that there is a fluidity and seeing that there is constructs and things that we've been conditioned and ingrained in us, right? That they can't unlearn. So people are dying because of that. So I'm very upfront with it. And I also am upfront to say, it's okay if you think that I'm cute. It's totally okay to think that I'm beautiful. I don't feel, my undercarriage is not tingling for you, boo. It's not tingling for you at all. I just took it as a compliment and I went on my merry way. Right? You don't have to worry about that. And I think I do significantly a lot of work with that because of all of this passing and all of this stuff that I think people say that I am and that I, you know, have did some work on exploring, you know, but I think it's really an issue with folks. But for me, I've just laid it out, be honest and tell people that it's not that deep. as they continue to approach me. And you know what? I'm still single, so get it together.
I think both of you said great things, and so I won't add much, but I think for a lot of people, drag is also an entry point into better understanding their gender identity. It's a lot of, not a lot of, drag is a vehicle through which a lot of trans women and non-binary folks get to explore. Sorry, let me start over. Drag is a way that a lot of people, regardless of their gender identity, get to explore gender. And so I think for folks, I was talking about it being sort of like a liberatory art form. I think it does that much work for yourself as for other people, right? Like you get to see examples, but you also get to, as you're doing it, explore yourself and what gender means to you and what your identity is. And it gives you an opportunity to express yourself in different ways. And even if that doesn't cause any like revelations about your own gender identity, I think it gives you a chance to express different aspects of yourself that you don't necessarily get to express on the daily.
Thank you all. And so our last question before we wrap up this session is, what are your thoughts on what drag is as a profession versus drag as an art form?
I like to think of drag, if I can go first, sorry for like just jumping right in. I like to think of drag as an art form, and if I were ever able to make enough money at it to like pay my bills, that would be cool. But I think the tricky thing for me, at least, would be like, I know that if it were my job, I'm not sure, like I would have to really do a lot of like boundary setting to make sure that I still loved it as an art form, because I think the minute something becomes your job, things can become routine and things can feel like stale or stagnant or too repetitive. And so I would want to make sure that I really was protective of that and getting to do things that were just for me, not just for a paycheck.
I would say too, ditto all of that. And as a creative person, I think the blessing is that I am creative, right? I can make something out of nothing, and it's just great. But the curse of it is that you are that, and so when it becomes a profession thing, I don't know. I think everybody thinks differently about drag, but I think the hardest thing about drag is picking the song. For me, that's the hardest thing. It's not about putting the makeup on and how to shape my face and all that. Honey, I just have some days and I don't have some days. Like I can accept that. But the song choice, right? And so I think if this is my profession, I'm not performing the same thing over and over and over again. I just can't do that. It's in my body and I just cannot do it, right? And so it will pain me for this to be my profession. I don't know what I would do. I think I would go crazy. I would really go crazy because I cannot sit in that same space all the time. And then doing show after show after show and having people I want you to do that one number that I saw you in. No, girl, I ain't doing that because I already did that and it's already over the internet and I'm just going to put on a different outfit and do the same performance. Absolutely no. And people will be like, no, but you got to do it because that's what you're known for. And I think that there's a lot of expectations that happen around the profession part, but I don't want those expectations, right? And so if I do it for fun, I can just make my own, and I feel more free to be able to do that. And I really love having a steady paycheck. No shade, honey, but I love having a good old steady paycheck and a good old benefits package. And until drag becomes that, I will be having a steady job, a steady paycheck, and a good old benefits package, and this will be my hobby. And if it increases to me doing it 7 days a week, I'm still gonna have my fallback. Or I don't want to say fallback because I ain't falling back. I'm gonna still have my go-to if I want to do that. So
yeah. Even with me working in the school as a profession, I still have my plan B, C, D, E, F, and G. All, and I think coming from a dance background, you can make anything you want into a profession if you're willing to work hard enough. And the art form like art or dance or drag, it could be your profession if you're willing to like bust your A all the time, every day, and do what needs to be done in order for you to get it. But I think it can be both. Like for me, it'd be a hobby because I can imagine doing this every day. And if it's going to be my profession, I have to love every single moment of it.
Yeah, I also just like want to add on. Also, me, like, even when I am doing a drag show that I'm getting paid for, the whole time I'm like, ugh, these pantyhose are too tight. Ugh, oh my God. You mean I gotta stay in this makeup after the show is done? I already finished.
You never do. You never do.
Exactly. Right? And so, I like the drag queens I do know that do it for profession work hard. You have to work really, really hard if you're not a drag race queen. And there's like very few drag queens who get to that level of being Lady Bunny, Coco Peru. There's very few queens that are able to do that. Like there's some folks too, like who are like staples from where they're from. And they're known for doing those shows like all the time, like hosting those nights. But like drag as a profession, like you know how much money goes into drag? Like Echo said, it's a black hole. Like you are almost always running in a deficit. Like if I get $5, thanks, you help pay for a lash. Like it's so expensive. I just could not see myself doing it as a profession. It's just not financially feasible if I'm not already coming from a place of privilege to be able to start with like everything that it is that I need. But there's like your tights rip, your eyelashes rip. If I can, I'm gonna put it on my W10s, but like it's very hard. And there's just like what Vivian said too, there's this expectation of what it is that you're going to do, like that you're going to be like this queen all of the time. So again, it comes back into what we were saying earlier about at that point I'm getting so much input on what my art should be, it's no longer my art. On that note, thank y'all so much. We ended exactly at 6:30. I want to thank y'all all so much for joining us. Please give it out one more time for our virtual panelists. Woo! Y'all were absolutely amazing. Thank you all so much for joining us in on this session. We're actually going to be posting this entire session to our YouTube. So if you really like this and you want to show it to your friends or recommend it to folks, please, you'll see it on our social media in just a few days. All of these Queen social media is available on our Facebook page and our Instagram. So if you, please go and follow them, share their stuff, promote their stuff. If they have merch, go buy their merch. And I'm sure their Venmos and Cash Apps are also available on those things. So DM them. We are professionals. We all got PayPals. I got, what's one of them card swiping things, you know, or you can mail me a check. Whatever it is, make sure that you are supporting these queens, support your local drag, and really uplift their voices. So thank y'all so much. We're going to stay in the room for a little bit as everyone clears out. But thank y'all for joining us in on this session.